Cheer up, crew cut. You taking notes?
Devil May Cry is a fast-paced action game with a vast amount of intricate and deep mechanics that can be daunting for a new player to get used to. Its combat is all about being stylish and rewards the player for experimenting with all the tools that are given to them. In this video, we'll be going over the basics of DMC5, breaking down its combat into simple concepts. For those who are new to the series and want to learn the game, this video series should help you better understand how to grasp DMC's complex combat system. And if you're a veteran of the series, the information that you've previously learned will be beneficial when you play DMC5.
Alright, time to kick some ass.
When you control Nero, Dante, or V, you can move the character around with the analog stick. Tilting the control stick slightly causes your character to walk, while pressing the control stick even further allows the character to run. When you run when there's no enemy present on the screen, and if you purchase Sprint, Speed, or Quick Play, your character will increase their speed after a certain amount of time spent running. Pressing the lock-on button will cause the character to walk slowly. If no enemy is present, the character will strafe, facing one direction while you move around. If an enemy is present, pressing the lock-on button will bring your attention immediately to them. Pressing the lock-on toggle button, if there's multiple enemies around you, will shift your attention to another enemy. In DMC4, there are different lock-on types that prioritize enemies based on certain criteria. However, in DMC5, there are no additional lock-on types. This could get a bit tricky to get used to, especially if you're used to using a specific lock-on type. Pressing the melee button will cause the character to attack with their weapon. Same with pressing the range button. Attacking while an enemy is present causes the character to attack towards their direction, usually depending on how far the enemy is. While locking on, the player has access to moves they normally wouldn't have. One key feature with this mechanic is that it gives you access to a dodging move. Pressing the jump button while holding the lock-on button and holding the control stick left or right causes them to perform a side roll. This move can be used to dodge enemy attacks due to its invulnerability properties. And as I stated before, there are only certain moves that can be used with lock-on. To list a few moves that are only accessible with lock-on, let's take a look at Nero's move list. There's Shuffle, Streak, Caliber, and Wire Snatch. For newcomers of the series, getting used to the lock-on feature can be a little bit cumbersome and clunky because you have to hold down the lock-on button while attacking and holding a direction to get out certain moves. But after you understand how to execute these lock-on moves, you won't feel as restrictive as before. I suggest practicing inputting any move that utilizes lock-on if you're having trouble with it. Now that we've gotten the basics down, let's work on trying to understand the purpose of various moves. In DMC games, there are all sorts of moves and combos that can be used to damage the enemies that you fight. Some attacks do a lot of damage, while some require a setup or a situational purpose. In this example, let's just focus on a different aspect: movement and knockback. Characters in DMC games usually have 3 different types of moves that are very beneficial to the player. Moves that are based off of movement or knockback, sometimes both. In DMC5, the same principle applies. We'll put these ideas into 3 different categories: moves that closes the gap between you and the enemy, moves that knocks the enemy away from you, and moves that launches the enemies upward. Moves that closes the distance between yourself and the enemy can allow for better repositioning or simply to chase your opponent down so you can follow up with something else. Moves that knock the enemy away from you are typically used to create distance, keeping them away from you when you're put at a disadvantage. It can also be used as a combo starter as well, depending on how you follow up afterwards. Moves that launches an enemy upwards are typically used as a combo starter in the air. This is great for picking off any particular enemy that's causing any problems for you. Keep in mind that some enemies react differently to specific moves, and some enemies can outright escape combos altogether. Take a look at a character that you like and check out their move list. Try to find moves that fit this criteria. To further help you out, let's look at a specific character. We'll use Nero as an example. One of Nero's greatest assets is his caliber. It is very useful for closing the gap between himself and the enemy. It also knocks enemies away from him, similar to his streak, but in the air. It can also be cancelled with his DT, breakaway, and even a jump cancel. Explore your character's moveset and experiment with what they have to work with. Try to get familiar with what they do and what happens to the enemy when your attacks land. Remember, some of your attacks could also be used as movement options, which can be useful when getting around the stage. If you have any additional questions about the information provided, please let me know in the comment section. In the next video, I'll talk about a more familiar yet advanced mechanic, known as jump cancel.